Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another webinar brought to you by the National Puerto Rican Chamber of Commerce. This one's titled Opportunity Zones 101 or Intro to Opportunity Zones. Today we have our good friend Chris Cooley with OZWorks Group. Will be joining us to give us kind of the basics on opportunity zones. We also have our two of our Puerto Rico ambassadors, Veronica Montalvo and DJ Lampitt, who will be joining the conversation. So we'll kind of get into the basics of opportunity zones, and then we'll finish it up, and we'll kind of chat about an in-person event that OZWorks is putting together at the end of July that we're going to be a part of, and we're really excited about. So without further ado, Chris, I'll kind of start the conversation off with you with pretty much simple, like what is an opportunity zone, and we'll kind of let the conversation go from there.
Yeah, it's great. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure just to get to know all of you and do all these kind of collaborative things together. So I'll just kind of frame out. My name is Chris Cooley. I'm one of the co-founders of OZWorks Group, which is an online community for opportunity zone stakeholders from all over the mainland and Puerto Rico. And we can get into some of that, like who's included in this, how are they included. But we launched this thing January of last year. And we've got over 270, and it kind of scales up, and it's an ever evolving ecosystem of people, OZ stakeholders from all over. So that's investors, real estate developers, service providers, businesses that are listed and issued, and it's a connecting point, right? It's an open, democratized access knowledge portal, and it really was built to kind of operate like a co-working space. So it is a paid platform, like it's a membership platform, and yeah, we do all kinds of things, including events, Zoom events, and it's all about solutions, right? Like we want people to come in at any tier, at any level, like whether they want to get more education, to be around peers, to be around people who have done it. And there's a mission behind it too. I mean, we talk about our culture is lead with a giving hand and participate and engage, because what you put in is what you get out. And I know DJ's been to one of our in-person events, and we've done this upcoming one will be our third in Puerto Rico, and it's amazing. So I learned about opportunity zones and the hotbed for opportunity zones being Puerto Rico when we first launched. We had about 40 members, and 12 of them were in Puerto Rico. I was like, what's up with this? And as a person from New York, and in the middle of January, it was like, I'm going to go find out what's up in Puerto Rico. And that's kind of how our first event started. I just told our group on a Zoom one day, like, I'm going to Puerto Rico, and people started messaging me like, where are you going to go? Can I come too? And then we developed this bus tour with Catherine Morea, became friends with a lot of different groups. And so that's how one thing led to another. And it's incredible to see the connectivity, the shared knowledge, the mindset, the love and appreciation that I felt when I came down to the island in engaging with local businesses and investors from the mainland. It's like there's this thing happening, and it's sometimes kind of hard to point. When I came back, I said, you know what, must be what the Silicon Valley felt like before it was the Silicon Valley. Right. And I truly mean that. Like, there's a sense of camaraderie and community. And so I'm really drawn to it. And it all started with opportunity zones. So you asked me a question that I haven't answered yet, which is, what is an opportunity zone? And so in general, an opportunity zone is a location-based tax incentive. It was passed with the 2017 tax bill. With the past administration, it has gotten some heat because there's a spirit behind this incentive that I can get into in a little bit. But the basic gist of it is that if you are able to generate a capital gain and you invest that capital gain through a proper structure, that you can invest in properties and or businesses that are in compliance with the law of this tax incentive, so that you can in all sort of grandness, eliminate paying capital gains tax on the appreciated value of that investment, right? So it's like, I tell a lot of people are like, well, why do I have to use capital gains? It's like, one, I'm not the IRS, I don't write the rules, but two is that think about the economics of it, right? It's sort of saying like, if you're willing to invest in this area in a certain way. And the other thing is you have to hold that investment over 10 years. You cannot, you can't exit early, and there's some ways to navigate that. But the spirit is that I'm going to invest in an area, and I'm going to build that economic value in my area, and that's going to help the entire community in some way, shape, or form through that business or that property entity, right? And so it's a lot more complex than that. But there are some rules and laws, and some there's pages and pages of them. But that's another reason why we created OZWorks Group, is we wanted to have like a way in so that people could talk about their experiences, their successes, their failures, and that we have people who read the law that can operate. So the whole idea here was to pair private and public sector mentalities in some ways. And I should also mention that these zones, these areas were carved out based on census data. They are socioeconomically challenged traditionally, and there are some that are outliers. Those are the ones that get a really bad rap, because it's like, why is this here? And there's, you can start to see how and why every governor operated and identified them in the ways they did. I'm not going to get political, because it's not, there's a policy set up, and it was a bipartisan move. So this is available to every state. There have been states that have elected to decouple so that you can still get the federal. This is a federal incentive, so you can still get the federal benefit, but you can't get the state benefit in certain states. So this is all things to consider. But in general, this is like, I'm willing to make a long-term investment in an area that could grow and appreciate, and I'm going to be part of that growth and appreciation. It's like driving your own Roth IRA on steroids from a financial standpoint. It's pretty amazing in the long run. But then you get into like, well, what if, and how is, and you start to see who really is ready to fulfill the true promise of this thing and the spirit of it, in how they want to navigate the structure and system, or how they think they can, right? So it's not, I'll just be the first one to say, like, it's not for everyone. It's better to, like, kind of not get into it, but learn about it, like understand what the nuances are. And, we do all kinds of services and products to be able to support that way. But hopefully that's a general overview. I also need to say, I should have said this in the beginning, that I am not a lawyer. I am not a CPA. Like, I am a community builder that learned a lot by being around opportunity zones every day for the last year and a half. So that's my knowledge, and maybe we can splice that to the beginning of the footage, but that's okay, as long as it's in there. So I like having my team, my business partners around me, because they can step in and say, actually, that little part that you just said is, because there are a lot of misconceptions and misinformations floating around. And ultimately, we end up hearing a lot of them, right? Because it's like, well, my CPA said that I set it up the right way, and it's a year later, and now I got to file my taxes. But what's a qualified opportunity fund? Oops. There are some things that I hear on a daily basis that I cringe, but our whole goal is to help people navigate out of or within the boundaries, to solve some of these challenges. But I'm always encouraged when somebody comes in and says, I think I want to do it this way. Can you let me know if this is possible? Right. So please, if I'm speaking to anyone out there who's interested, do that first. That was a long intro, by the way. I hope it's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you, Chris. I would love to touch on a little bit on the spirit of inclusion and who's eligible, who can actually participate in an opportunity zone fund.
Yeah, it's such a great question. And I think it's one of the reasons why I got involved in creating a business around opportunity zones is because personally, I care about what you just mentioned. I have launched 2 companies, consulting agencies in the past, and I liked one, I loved the other one. And then I realized I really need to do something that was fulfilling and positive on a larger scale. And so when I found out about this incentive and how it's coupled with the communities that we're talking about, because the investment has to be in them, stay in them for X amount of time. There's all different timelines, but that spirit behind it and how people can participate, there's a little bit of a disconnect and divide that we're working to bridge in some ways. We formed a DE&I committee the first month into launching OZWorks Group, because it's important to me personally. And I also think it's important to the storyline of this entire industry that's grown around opportunity zones. And so, just being truly inclusive, like, what does that mean? How can it be done? Anyone who can generate a capital gain, which is part of the challenge, right? Because not everyone can, but you can generate a gain in a couple of different ways, right? You can sell cryptocurrency, you can sell stock, you can sell company, or you can sell property. I personally, I had some gains that were created in ways that were outside of the timelines for me being able to invest in Opportunity Zone Fund. So what I did is I went and I sold part of my consulting company, right, to an unrelated party, and I generated a gain. My CPA said, "What are you doing? Why are you generating a gain on purpose?" Right? And I said, "I need to go find another CPA." So what I ended up doing, because OZWorks Group is a qualified opportunity zone business, so we said we're going to practice what we preach, and I ultimately generated a gain by selling some value of something I already had, right? So there's no minimum to getting involved in an opportunity zone fund, but the only way to see that long-term benefit and kind of build out generational wealth is to get an initial gain into a fund. So that is something that we say it's open and available to everyone. Well, it is if you have the education and understanding and knowledge around how to generate a capital gain. So that's part of that. Like, we want to get this information into the communities that we're talking about the investments going into, so that if they elect to, that they could participate in some of the equity around this and some of the actual financial benefit in the long run, versus just, hey, I'm a wealthy investor, I'm required to drop this money into here. Where are the companies and businesses that I can do this for? So, for a business, it's valuable to set yourself up this way, because you may be able to attract additional investment, but it's not highly recommended to set up a structure like specifically around this, because one of the things we say is, you can't make a bad deal a good one just because of an OZ, right? The OZ, and to use the famous metaphor from my friend Maria de Los Angeles Rivera at Grant Thornton, like, the OZ is the cherry on top of the frosting on top of the cupcake. So, like, you have to have a really good cupcake to start any of this chain reaction. The OZ is just a really attractive bright red thing on top. It's still tasty, it adds a little bit of flavor. It's not necessarily like the thing that you want to build a dessert off of, you know what I mean? And so that's just an example, and a couple examples of how I want to inspire and encourage and explain to people who are businesses and are in OZs to think about this ahead of time, so that as you scale a company, that's where it really benefits, right? If you have a company already that you can sell part of to an unrelated party, you could generate a gain and invest it into a new structure, a new LLC, right? That could be the scale, the franchise, the growth model, right? And so that's kind of one of those unique things that I've seen, I understand, and I want to promote, because I believe that that's the way that more businesses and small business owners or entrepreneurs can get involved in this incentive, right? Right now, it's mostly real estate because it's easy to understand walls and floors, and versus like a market niche, an industry, a product, a service, and you start to get into all these variables with business development. But people who understand it, what I just explained is very doable.
So along that line, guys, if I could just ask one other question, because it's related, and that's, is there a minimum? I know you have to have a fund before you can actually invest in an opportunity zone business or an opportunity zone property.
Yeah.
Is there a minimum to start that fund?
No, there's no minimum, but you have to project, right, like what you're going to spend on the startup of a company, or the infusion of capital to purchase a real estate. Like, there's some rules around real estate where you have to make substantial improvements to it. So you can't just funnel money down into purchase of a property. You have to include and be knowledgeable that you have to like have additional monies to be able to improve that. And so in business, right, like a startup cost is attached to something. Can I share my screen? I have this diagram. I think it might be helpful. Would that be all right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yes, please.
So this is a spreadsheet, and it's not gonna be the greatest because I'm not doing it through a PowerPoint, but so this is a document that's available through OZPros. It's an Opportunity Zone cheat sheet. It's a free download on the website. But I like to walk people through it because this is sort of like best case scenario. And so what you're talking about, Veronica, is the minimum in this QOF level. And there isn't a minimum, but what happens here is you generate a gain, and that gain then goes into this structure. So there's an LLC that's set up as basically a holding company that is your qualified opportunity zone fund. So that's where your gains go into. The tax filings happen out of that, and then it basically earmarks you as electing to mark this money as opportunity zone capital, right? That money and you have 180 days to move your gain into a qualified fund. Okay, that money that's in the fund then gets dropped down to a QOZB level. So this is also a separate business entity. And the reason that happens is that there's a little bit more flexibility in the asset tests and the compliance. And I'm not going to get into all that right now, but what you ideally want to do is have a plan. You need to have a 31-month working capital safe harbor plan for any QOZB. And that is like projecting how you're going to use the money that you put in, right? So you could start QOF with $2,000, right? And then you drop that money into a QOZB, but I mean, good luck with a startup, cost being $2,000. You can take an injection of capital into the QOZB, and that can be a loan, that could be cash. The thing is, when it comes out, it's going to be, split up in a percentage when you exit, right? That is parallel to whatever your. So if you put 2,000 of QOF into your QOZB, and you put 200,000 in a loan or cash or whatever to start up your business, like why? I mean, maybe you get that fractional out, which is not bad, but there's a lot of paperwork and things that go into this just for that small fraction potentially. So no, there's no minimum, but you want to be strategic in how you're going to spend the money, what you need. Is your startup a tech company? Yes, okay, but be conscious of, like, you have these asset tests, so 50% of your compensation needs to flow through the opportunity zone. You have these hard assets that need to qualify. Like, again, I'm not going to get into the nuances, but I just want people to know that there are, that there are things you have to comply with that you should really know about before you dive into it. If you don't, okay, you can kind of backfill some stuff, but those are just, I like showing the visual because I think it helps in answer your question and show a little bit deeper. It's hard to answer some of these questions like one off because there's a waterfall of things that happens after that I think you need to know so you can backfill, like, what is my minimum? That's the question to ask, right? And what's the minimum? The benefit here is that if it takes 50 grand and you have the capital gains to start this company, and that company can grow to 50 million, you're going to be out in 10 years. If you can exit in 10 years, no capital gains tax on that difference. That's people can retire for life based off of some of this stuff,
I feel like the underlying theme of this webinar really, and just opportunity zones in general, is to really cross your T's and dot your I's at the beginning. Talk to professionals like yourself and your team, and really do your due diligence before you kind of jump in head first.
Yeah, well,
it could be a nightmare.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we're doing events like the live one, down there in Puerto Rico. We want to connect people and help them understand that. We also put out a lot of free content, just encouraging people to, like, we could do webinars for days, and some of this is like, we just want people to have a stepping stones, you know what I mean? And this is one. So I so appreciate you putting this together because we can educate people. I will say, turning it to Puerto Rico a little bit, it's something like 98%. It's over 90% of the island of Puerto Rico is in an opportunity zone. So what that does is, from a compliance standpoint, if you're going to start a company or a business, Puerto Rico is like, it doesn't. I get scolded sometimes when I say it's easy to do it in Puerto Rico, because, you know, anything that you're talking about with tax incentives, there's complexities, but it does make the compliance headache a little less challenging, right? If you can pick any property and any group of talent on that, the whole island, and then you're creating jobs, then the spirit is now totally and wholly fulfilled, which is pretty amazing. And it's one of the reasons why I love where we can go with this in Puerto Rico, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. And I have a question. So just in terms of the like pros and cons, you know, OZ funds, but also love to just hear maybe a few examples of, you know, success cases and maybe what's not working, you know, and I think you've alluded to it, you know, some of these questions throughout this webinar to start, but love to just kind of share with the rest of the group.
Yeah, you know, generally speaking, one of the biggest challenges with the OZ incentive is that, you know, it's got negative headlines. You know, the stories of successes that are happening, you have to go really find them, because most of the people who are doing it silently because they have businesses to run. They don't have time to go promote the opportunity zone incentive. They're like, I have to keep my lights on. I have to figure out this 31-month working capital safe harbor. I got to be in compliance. And, you know, it's like, I have things I need to do. And so, you know, I find that one of my, you know, rubs is that I talk to people often that are doing this and that are positively impacting communities, and their story is just not out there. You know, there's like 5 funds and they always get it, you know, amplified and talked about. And it's like, and then it's like, well, the spirit of it isn't there. And then it goes all the way up the chain to advocacy and policymakers, right? Because if that's what they hear, then that's what they're going to think. And then it's like, we don't want this thing to happen anymore. Plus, it was the past administration, even though it was bipartisan. Like, you get into all these different layers of, you know, but the biggest challenge that I see right now is that really positive people in communities are seeing the power of this incentive, and their stories aren't really being told just yet, right? And so I want to create a platform for that. So, you know, we've got on our YouTube channel, we've got some success stories. We did an advocacy event where we signed a letter. We had our community come together. We had almost 300 signatures that we sent to Capitol Hill in support of an extension of the bill. So one of the other challenges, DJ, is that, you know, the final regs of this law didn't come out until 2 years after the timeline started. So there, you know, there's a sunset to this thing. You have until the end of 2026 to invest your capital gains into a fund. Well, for 2 years, people were like, I'm not doing that. They could write in a whole new law and then it changes the whole thing, you know? So that's been challenging. So in essence, there's like 2 years lost. And then compound that with the negative storylines. It's like, in reality, we've only had like 8 months to show traction and positive storylines in this whole industry. And the timeline's been ticking. So there's only like a few years left for us to even tell the stories or it'd be like saying, well, your startup company didn't make $10 million in the first year. Well, you should close it down. It's not working, right? But we say, well, but it broke even the first year. You know what I mean? So excuse me, I find those things challenging. Success is there's one fund that's been doing well on the island of Puerto Rico, and that is investing in businesses. And I'm maybe what we can get this person on a Zoom or something. I'm not going to explain the details of who they are, what they do. You could go look it up. But I spoke with this person today, actually, and you know, they're doing fundraising to invest in projects that are eco-friendly, that are in Puerto Rico, a commitment to the island. It's just like, I'm so honored to know them, because there is a commitment to the spirit. Now, one of the challenges is that they saw, by just investing in operating businesses, they're actually missing a huge nugget of the opportunity, which is real estate. So they decided to add in a real estate component, but still keep the spirit of their investing and that their ESG projects, and you know, that they are going towards infrastructure and green energy. So you know, those people and these projects exist, and it's continuing to grow. this is a really young industry and a really old one all at the same time. It's kind of weird and wild to think about, but we do what we can, and I'm glad to have a dialogue that's going to be more inclusive of businesses, because really it's the biggest potential benefit, right, in the long term for the person who can get involved. So hopefully
just a quick follow up on that. So to your point, I guess what you're trying to say as well, I mean, community-led initiatives around OZ funds, I think is probably potentially a great starting point to create success, because obviously the communities that you're going into know best themselves what they need, and the businesses that have been there forever that could use the support and so on and so forth. So it's interesting to hear, like, hey, some are not getting good press and some are, and and so I think maybe from a perspective is community-led initiatives I think are so vital, especially when it comes to places like Puerto Rico.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that trust, the conversation, the dialogue that can happen. I mean, I really want people and businesses and organizations in Puerto Rico to know that, like, this is available. This isn't lumped into some of the incentives that are designed to attract mainlanders and people who are not from the island. Like, this is a potential opportunity to get involved, and does it take time and capital, and everything does if you want to be in business. At the same time, it's a very, very amazing potential on the back end to talk about generational wealth, to explain capital gains, and to me, that's one of the things, DJ, in the community dialogue here is, like, you run into, like, well, we start talking at this really high level, capital gains and taxes and blah blah, and the majority of the businesses that are in these areas, like, again, they're like, they might have 3-5 like locations for hair salon was an example of one in Atlanta, right? But the woman had an idea for franchising, and it's like, you have a valuable thing in these locations right now. You could sell a fraction of them to an unrelated party, and then put the money into a fund, and then put it down into a franchise model that could be, I mean, you can spur generational wealth for your family, for yourself, like, and it was like, and I'm inspired to talk to people about this. It's not, I'll tell you what it's not good for. It's like, if you have like a one-off mom and pop grocery shop, right? Like, it's just not gonna benefit you. But if you have a mom and pop grocery shop that serves the city of San Juan and Luquillo, and you think you can take it to the whole island, go do this. Sell a part of what you have right now to somebody you trust and know, but that isn't your uncle or your daughter or a family member or a significant other, and or a business partner in the future. Roll it into the franchise LLC that's going to build that out. And now when you cash out in 10 years, or between the 10 to 2047 end of the timeline, you've done something really unique with your money that will never be seen again, by the way. Unless this thing gets extended and rolled out,
That's a really interesting nugget, because there actually are some pretty amazing multi-location businesses that are born and bred here in Puerto Rico. And I mean, from my experience, I'm sure they don't know about this. So it's such an amazing nugget of information that, and I'm proud of seeing some of these amazing franchise, potential franchise, brands coming here, and they're now starting to look into the US, and they're, to export what, their amazing business that they've already started.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a great nugget.
I want to share one more nugget that I learned recently as well. And that is that if you set up a qualified opportunity zone fund in Puerto Rico, you are required to invest in Puerto Rican businesses and properties. So it's just something to consider if you wanted to go mainland. Now, there's a different dynamic that you would want to talk to legal counsel about, right? Or the Grant Thorntons of the world, to say, okay, well, we have this intention, that this whole incentive is built around thinking progressively and having a vision for something in the future. Because it's all based around, the only time you get value out of it is when you cash out in 10 years. So you have to have an exit strategy, right? And you have to think about what that growth is going to look like and how you're going to sustain it over 10 years, you know? So it's just been a really incredible exercise, even on my part, you know, putting myself into a QOZB. It was like, this is some hands-on stuff. If you want to get hands-on, like, you know, and I'm excited to share what I've learned, you know, in the belief that someone's going to catch on to this and in Puerto Rico or wherever and go, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I have a vision for growth and I have a vision for scale, and, you know, and then they're going to be a part of our community and tell their story on your webinar next time. You know?
I love it. I love it. That's called, you know, we have an expression here, Chris, explicado en arroz y habichuelas. That's explained in rice and beans. Simple, very straightforward. We're uncomplicated, and that's what I love about this interview, Chris. You are really breaking it down so that everybody who you know may have not been as exposed as we have, right, to some of these conversations, can really appreciate where you're coming from, the spirit of what you're trying to do, and hopefully, like you said, be inspired. I have two parts. I think we only have time for maybe one more question, Joel, right? How are we doing on time?
We're doing pretty good on time. We got about 15 minutes or so.
Okay, good. So my next question is, well, you can choose to answer in whatever order you want, but the question I had was process. What are the next steps? Someone who is interested, who is inspired, right? Who do they talk to, reach out to? What is that like? Do you have a chart for that? Or can you just, can you explain that in rice and beans for us?
Rice and beans.
The second part is the Spanish. Do you have any kind of marketing collateral explanations, that chart perhaps in Spanish? If not, I'm happy to help create that with you, but it's very important that is, if you really want to embody the spirit of inclusion, you want to make sure that the masses, and while we are, you know, for the most part, very bilingual, very professional on the island, and we have a lot of that runs across the Spanish is still a primary language, and people should have this information where how they can consume it in arroz y habichuela.
Rice and beans. Rice and beans. I love it. Veronica, let's connect on that. I want to make this happen. The Spanish piece is my answer is no. We don't have that. And so, you know, one of the challenges is in telling the stories, it's very easy to say like, oh, well, you know, as an investor, right, that has privilege and has generated massive capital gains, to say like, yeah, well, I mean, I understand it, so who cares? You know what I mean? I'll just go invest. But the more you build that relationship with people on the ground, because you're going to be investing in companies and properties in areas that you normally wouldn't have in the past, right? And so to understand, the thing is, Veronica, like the rice and beans has to go both ways, right? And so I really want people to understand, who are investors, the rice and beans of the community too. And we only get to make that happen when there's a dialogue and space and a shared vision together, right? And so but let's make it happen to get this material in Spanish. And I think having a representative like yourself who could speak that and deliver it would be amazing. Because, you know, although I would love to, I'm going to, and I know some Spanish and I'm going to learn more, I'm not the person to deliver that message, right? So that's one. What was the other part of your question was
process. What are the next steps? You know, you've inspired the masses.
Yeah. So we created a bunch of content around this. We have a YouTube channel that our goal is to start to create more content that's short and consumable. So just, you know, having people visit some of that material and that resource. The other thing is we've created this affiliation. So we have our community platform, right? And I would again, I'm going to encourage anybody, like, go to OZWorksgroup.org to learn more. Go to OZWorksgroup.com to like come and participate. But we've got these light memberships. So for, you know, $50 a month, you can come in, you can be around peers, you can come to Zoom sessions, you can start to, like, we have searchable libraries. We've got, you know, we've got videos, we've got Zoom calls, just to get more immersed in and eliminate the misconception and the misinformation that a lot of people run into was talking with a friend last night, and he's like, yeah, I've been watching this guy about opportunity zones on Twitter and on Instagram. And he's like, he says you can just like put money into a building in an opportunity zone and you're good. And it's like, that's totally wrong. And he's got, 50,000 views. It's like, oh no, right? So our goal is to create this community of people who are serious and knowledgeable and want to connect and share. So that's something we do, a 3-day trial, so people can come in on a Friday. I encourage everyone to come in on a Friday because you get to experience a Zoom and we make introductions, and then you have the weekend to kind of test it out. But we also created an affiliation with OZWorks, and what they do is, and I'm actually one of the strategists now, to come in and we can walk people through one-on-one for a very nominal fee, to really talk through what the scenario might be. And we create, like I said, with these steps that we have. So once they go through a strategy call, they can get a done for you package set up, and it's about making it easier, right, to work through with professionals and also bring together the knowledge of the crowd. So once when we've got people, we did a scholarship initiative. So we had a couple of real estate developers that wrote checks to support 6-month prepaid memberships for people who represent OZ communities. I would love to do something like that in Puerto Rico. I just haven't found the right partner yet to fund that. We went and we sourced the developers and the lawyers and people to learn about this, and they participated for 6 months. They had 6 months covered, and then they got a discounted rate to come into our community. Well, now they have gone to their communities, shared their knowledge, and they can come back and bring some of these resources to the forefront, right? And so, it's a sustainable community initiative that we've put together. But we're creating a few things with partners in compliance, because that's the next thing. You have the fund set up. Well, you got asset tests, like you gotta meet compliance rules. And so we're working with some CPA firms to make sure that we can create an affordable product that can be a compliance resource. So I'm promoting what we're doing, but it's all very built on what we're hearing from a customer discovery standpoint of our group, and so this is such a new industry, and whatever we can do to support it and make sure that it's done right and then it's done efficiently, and that we can ultimately tell more positive stories. That's how it keeps going, so that was a plug for everything we're doing. But there's podcasts. I mean, I'm assuming people will get to this through some free resources, and hopefully they understand the value of getting connected with the next level of engagement.
So Chris, on that actually relates to that topic. So we're coming up on the hour, so we'll start to wrap it up. But tell us, so we just got off before this call, we just got off the info session for the in-person event that you guys are hosting.
Yeah.
So can you speak to a little bit we're really excited about that one, and overall just really excited on working together with you guys moving forward, and just really bringing awareness to everything, all these opportunities that are out there. So again, if you want to give us a little update on what's going on at the end of July with the in-person event.
Yeah, and I'm so appreciative that you all are going to participate in this. I know Veronica is going to be presenting, and then we'll have this sounds like a little mini pitch day that we'll be able to support with businesses. And so yeah, we're July 25th to the 28th. We've done 2 events last January, and then the June before that. It was designed to be an intimate environment for stakeholders. People came down from the mainland on the first go around. Then we had some COVID challenges, so we had a lot of local investors and participants in the second one. And what we did is we took all the best pieces of what we had done in the past, and then we assembled as an organizer crew, and we're doing day one is a presentation, overarching discussion with different organizations, yours included, Invest Puerto Rico, and we just got a bunch of amazing groups, Grant Thornton, who was on our info session earlier, to talk about what it looks like to invest in Puerto Rico, not just opportunity zones, but just in general. And then second day is a bus tour, which the last one we were on was actually where we met DJ. And DJ then connected me to you all. So I'm just really grateful that like we're rolling these things out in the way we are. But it's small, you know, we've got 55 seats, and we want people to, by the end of 3 days, really get to know each other. And we just really lean on the value of relationships, you know, and getting to know people really who they are. I mean, you sit on a bus all day with somebody touring an island and get to know them pretty well. DJ, I don't know if it wasn't you that fell in the creek. It was somebody. Remember, we were touring a property, and that like we were standing there and somebody fell in, like they're trying to cross a little stream bed, and yeah, it's just like, you know, you have these experiences with people.
It was more than a stream bed. It was literally the exit of a river into the ocean.
Yeah, okay,
so,
I'm downplaying it slightly.
Yeah, he was like up to his waist. So yeah.
Well, like hilarious, you know. And then I had a pair of extra swim shorts, which, you know, camper guy in me, right? Like it's like here's some shorts. Anyway, the third day is something we haven't done yet, but I've been dreaming about for a year, and it's like a very, very involved workshop that is engaging. So we've got panelists from Grant Thornton, from our community of experts that are going to field questions basically all day long, with, you know, facilitated topics. But and then we're going to have what we're calling a hot seat with one of my business partners, Ashley Tyson, who's going to take someone's, you know, OZ scenario and then like pick it apart and build it up again, and use these real examples like DJ, you were asking about, you know, what are some success stories? I mean, we have no idea who's going to come in as well. I mean, I think we're literally going to pick it out of the hat, you know, but that's just like the organic, fun, exciting sort of nature that we bring. I tell everyone, like, no blazers, flip-flops only. You can wear a button-down shirt, but like, don't get too crazy about it, you know? So yeah, that's what we're doing. And then on the 28th, it sounds like probably the 28th, we'll do something with you guys. So that would be amazing. Yeah, I'm excited.
No, it's super exciting. We look forward to not just this webinar that we're doing now, like subsequent ones we'll put together in the future, and just kind of see how you'll see a lot more collaboration between between the chamber and OZWorks moving forward. We got the in-person event. Unfortunately, I won't be able to be there in person, but I'll be there for the next one for sure. So again, yeah, thank you again, Chris. For everybody watching, we'll be sure to get this webinar out to you, to our network. We'll share the links to the links that Chris had shared with kind of the info, that web thing.
Yeah, the cheat sheet. The cheat
sheet. There it was. Right.
I'll get you some links for sure.
So we look forward again to be on the lookout for future collaborations between us. So Veronica and DJ, before we close out, did you guys have any last words before we wrap this one up?
No, I just would like to thank Chris for his time. Obviously, Joel, for this opportunity and this platform to have this conversation, which is so vital to our community. We are really at a very exciting time here on the island, and it's just wonderful to see the collaboration and in the spirit of just full support of seeing that the island continue to grow and prosper. So yeah, I'm really excited to have this conversation and continue these series with you, Chris, and certainly continue the dialogue as to how we can expand and really spread the good word, right, in Spanish as well, so that the masses can all enjoy it and take part of it.
Totally.
Take advantage of it.
Yeah, and I'm just grateful for all three of you as well for this conversation. It's super vital, and again, it needs to be had on all levels. So I appreciate this conversation, and super excited for July 28th when we get to show our community to the investors. And there's some really amazing businesses that we're talking to that we want to showcase and pitch, and some great innovation. And that's a great thing that I fell in love with the island is the innovation and the drive of the local businesses and entrepreneurs. So thank you guys.
Thank you all. Really, it's great to be able to talk about this in a format that I know will be received, in a really positive, powerful way. So look forward to doing it again.
Awesome. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us again, and you all have a wonderful afternoon. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.